And then once they've chased a bag, they've made a bunch of money, they've done a bunch of really, really positive growth with themselves, all of a sudden they're trying to get back into the dating market, and then they realize that they aren't prepped for it. They do not know how to handle it. They get their hearts broken, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, the problem is, you know what, I need to go and improve myself and become better. Like, there's limits to that shit. Like, yes, you could be trying to move from like making 20K a month to making 100 to making 300, but making $1 million a month isn't going to change your dating prospects all that much.
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breaktime Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you got that asthma. He is also a man who may consider adding skipping leg day to his list of cardio routines. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. I am here to talk about relationships and getting into them while destroying some of the ideas that people have when they're in those relationships, which is a little bit odd. But all in all, it should be a pretty interesting episode. I hope you listen all the way to the end. And should you like or dislike or want to say something about the content that I put out, then the DMs are always open at the Breaktime_podcast on IG, at the Breaktime Podcast on Facebook, and at Bagaka the D on X is where you can reach out to me from. And I would be more than happy to take what it is that you give me, whether it is positive or negative feedback, criticism, and even topic ideas, by the way, and I will handle them accordingly. And to speak on that, I would like to start things off by talking about Valentine's, or the fact that I didn't even talk about Valentine's on the Friday episode, and even all throughout the weekend. Like, I didn't even post up about it. Like, I didn't really seem to give too much of a flying damn about it. And someone kind of asked me about the entire thing, like, Denver, like, you're a podcaster, like, your podcast discusses love, sex, and relationships. And, you know, love and relationships are there, and that's what Valentine's is all about. And, you know, you didn't post up anything. How comes? Is it that you were tired or you didn't feel like it? And considering that, yes, I am a podcaster that discusses love and relationships, which are heavily celebrated on Valentine's, I can totally get why someone would feel that way, considering that I did decide to not post anything up. And there is actually a pretty good reason for it, or at least a pretty good reason according to me. And for me to give that reason, I need to give the disclaimer that I'm going to drop a very unpopular opinion, which is going to be one statement about 5 words. And some of y'all, more so women, might look at me a little bit differently after this because, well, my reason is that Valentine's is a business holiday. There, I've said it, that's my unpopular opinion. And while some people might think of it as me trying to run away from the whole idea of it, just let me cook with this for a little bit. Now, people will constantly argue about the whole thing of, if Valentine's about showing love, don't I show love for like the entirety of the year? Why do I have to like go all out on this particular day? Of which, that's a very sensible reason to have. And mind you, it is, you know, a very valid one, and it has held water for quite a bit, even though a lot of women have found ways around trying to talk about that shit. And the thing is, for me, it's not even just about the whole, why do I have to show love on one day, yet I show love, or at least I try to show love every single day of the year. For me, it's more of, Valentine's hasn't been about love for the most part. It's basically been a holiday where businesses and marketers have used social pressure to force people into showing love for their partners. Now, I know I'm complicating something, but, you know, I asked for you guys to let me cook, and, you know, I intend on getting there. So if you look at a lot of places during Valentine's Day, first of all, the cost of flowers is like 3 to 5 times the price. Like, this is something that was noted across so many parts of Nairobi and even beyond that. On top of that, like, you look at most of the service industry, they tend to celebrate during Valentine's Day because they can offer packages for people whereby you will find people will basically run for those packages because they're trying to find a way that is, I guess, socially acceptable for people to like show love to their partners. And this year it was so mad. Like, Valentine's Day marketing started from like mid-Jan, which I found to be a little bit odd. Like, I can get that there's a cash grab there, but y'all are showing the cash grab a little too much. Then also, so many places were advertising on social media, like full-on Valentine's Day packages, with 3-course meals, bouquets of flowers, a glass of wine, of which I feel like if you were to actually deconstruct a lot of those packages, the people in the service sector, more so the restaurants, the hotels, they actually make a pretty good killing from Valentine's Day, because they don't necessarily have to give you the best of what it is that they're offering. They just have to give you the good perception that you're getting a 3-course meal. And as far as packages go, like, that seems like a pretty premium thing, just the same way the whole money bouquet thing seems like a premium thing. So many people are basically falling for the social pressure of trying to show their loved ones that they love them, especially in today's day and age where people are all about loving loudly. But with that said, I feel like some of the more anti-Valentine's responses that I was seeing were just a little too extreme for my liking. When I was online on Valentine's Day and I literally saw someone post up on their stories a caption from a page which said, and I quote, "I hope y'all not calling off work on Valentine's Day to suck dick for 6 balloons and a box of chocolate," end quote. I honestly just kind of felt a little bit sorry for some people. Like, yes, I can get it. You don't have to be pro Valentine's, but you don't have to talk shit like this, you know? I honestly don't think you really need to be this sour when it comes to the idea of Valentine's Day. Like, if anything, this is like bare minimum, because you think about it, dude went out of his way to basically get 6 balloons, a box of chocolate, maybe some flowers, and he's just going to get his dick sucked, okay? Which, if you think about it, is actually bare minimum. Hell, it's below bare minimum. This guy is going out of his way, and you're doing what? Just parting some lips? Like, that shit probably happens on the regular. Like, go out of your way as well. If you are going to gift him using your body, like, do some interesting shit. Like, I don't know, give him a hand job with your feet, or like anal or some shit. Like, go out of your way. Like, nigga went ahead and got balloons and chocolate and flowers. Like, you should also try and do something for him, because love is not a one-way street. And that's something that I've always preached. Love should not be a one-way street. Love is not a one-way street. If that shit is two-way, you should also go out of your way to gift someone. And honestly, I didn't even think that the whole Valentine's Day thing was going to be a rant. And, you know, I've spent a shit ton of time talking about it. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I think I'll just cover what it is that I had wanted to talk about before the main topic, because it's actually nothing that's all that big. So the TV presenter Betty Charlo's sister, Gloria Charlo, recently broke up with her boyfriend, okay? It's nothing too big. It's not like there's anything that interesting about it, except for the fact that when she was doing a Q&A regarding the entire thing, someone asked about their dog, to which she said that they are going to co-parent the dog that they have, and the dog is going to spend more time at the guy's place, but, you know, like, it's a co-parenting thing. And I don't know, like, when I read this thing, like, and it was just the title that just hooked me, and don't get me wrong, it might just be the typical clickbait or the typical rage bait that people and influencers usually like to do. Like, I kind of felt some type of way about the entire thing. Now, people online were busy talking about how, oh, you know, there's levels to this shit. You're busy trying to have kids and, like, I don't know, co-parent kids and everything, and these people are busy trying to decide how to co-parent a dog and all. And personally, like, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against animal lovers. It's just, I find this particularly odd. Typically, the idea of co-parenting is left to children, because children are expected to grow up, or at least to develop a hell of a lot better, if they come up in a 2-parent household as opposed to a 1-parent household, and also sharing of responsibilities, blah blah blah. Like, you kind of get the point as to why it is co-parenting of children exists, because it's better to co-parent with the other parent of your kid than it is for you to just roll as a single individual. Not unless if the other parent is probably just a bad parent, or just a bad human being in general. And with that said, like, it makes sense to co-parent kids, but co-parenting a dog, though, that's a little bit much in my opinion. Like, how is it that we moved from, like, co-parenting or just having a family to co-parenting kids to now co-parenting animals? And don't get me wrong, it's not like it's completely unfathomable, but I feel like this is probably what maybe Gen X's and earlier stage millennials were thinking about when us guys were busy talking about situationships and friends with benefits, because, like, during that time they didn't have shit like this. So, like, okay, the two of you guys are banging together, and you're exclusively banging each other, but you're not going to be in a relationship, okay? Doesn't that seem a little bit odd? Like, us guys would wait until marriage to bang. Like, I'm thinking that's what they would think whenever they hear the whole idea of situationships. So when I look at the idea of co-parenting an animal, like a dog, like, dogs are amazing pets. It's just, I feel like that's a little bit excessive for a dog. And don't get me wrong, I can understand that in today's day and age, there's a lot of people that are choosing to not go for having kids and choose to instead have, an animal, a pet, or something like a plant. And, nowadays you're hearing a lot of dog moms, a lot of cat moms, and even a lot of plant moms and dads. And when you see situations like this, it seems very almost dystopian for some of us. So, like, when you kind of think about it, the idea of parenting was because of and for kids, but when you look at it nowadays, people are choosing to be parents of everything but kids. Someone will be a plant mom, someone will be a cat dad or a dog mom or some shit like that, and it is pretty interesting. The only question that I'd probably ask is, especially if you look at a situation like this where people now start co-parenting animals, am I allowed to turn someone down because they're basically a single parent? Like, that should be something that people should bring up at this point, because, I don't want to start taking care of someone else's dog. Nah, I want to have my own dogs and my own cats and my own plants. But then again, maybe I don't entirely understand this entire thing. So either way, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, over the years, if there's a piece of content that has been used to motivate a lot of people towards pushing towards their goals and everything, it has been the idea of the post-breakup or pre-relationship sort of drive to chase your dreams and have your partner kind of find you and have your potential partner find you in the process of it, or when you've already achieved your goals. And it's been a piece of content, basically it's almost like a section of content that has been used quite a bit, and it's motivated quite a lot of people, and I have been very, very for it. It's just very recently I started looking at it again and it stopped making as much sense to me. And I do intend on getting into why, but before I can do that, I first want to use a clip of a lady known as Cody Sanchez, who's a quote-unquote serial entrepreneur, busy talking about something similar to this. And while she does bring up some very valid points, I will kind of deconstruct that piece of advice to show the flaws and why I don't entirely agree with it nowadays. But before I can get into any of that, let me first let the clip play. So without further ado,
have you ever proactively looked for a partner and thinking a lot about finding a partner?
No, it's always kind of stumbled upon me.
Typically, people who are competent and looking for that same thing in a partner, they focus on bettering themselves before they focus on looking for another. A human who's like, I really just want to be with somebody. I want to be with somebody. I'm ready. How do I find my person? Get that energy out of your life as both a woman, which I can speak more to, and a man. And instead become somebody worth finding. And that's really hard to hear. But when you start working out, which doesn't mean you have to be perfectly fit, but you have more energy. When you start pursuing something that you're uniquely interested in, you're more interesting, and thus you will attract more interesting people. I think one of the worst things we've ever done is allow dating apps to enter into our dating equation. We have thought that it is a numbers game of finding the right person as opposed to becoming the right person. When you become the right person, you will attract people continuously no matter what. And I've seen this from both myself and my friends who are varying levels of attractive, varying levels of rich, but working really hard on a few things that make them very interesting.
Okay, so first things first, I want to acknowledge the fact that she said some very, very good shit. Like, the whole idea of bettering yourself and you becoming a more interesting person will actually help you be a better partner and be someone worth being with and so on and so forth. And, the whole drive towards choosing to become the kind of person that you'd want to be in a relationship with, or should I say, you would want someone to be in a relationship with, I think was also pretty solid advice. And I totally am on board with that, and I like how she explained a lot of that. It's just the whole idea of choosing to better yourself so that you can find someone. Now, like I said, this is very similar to a lot of what's been said there, and I think she described it a lot better. It's just a lot of people, whenever they come to the whole idea of or don't chase a babe, or don't chase a guy, chase a check or something, or chase the bag. It's usually this whole thought process of, what, like, you could be out there in the dating market actively looking for someone, or you can instead just chase the bag and chase your goals and dreams, and you'll find someone on the way, and like, make sure you're the best version of yourself so that you can find someone. And I hear a lot of this sort of advice given to guys quite a lot, and the unfortunate piece of that reality is that I don't think it's particularly great. Like, it's good to a very, very huge degree, but I do think that there needs to be limits to it. And my reasoning for it is a little bit odd to a certain degree, and it's simply just the fact that, you can kind of do both without necessarily harming one or the other. But, then again, that's just a me thing. Like, this whole idea of, after you've come from a breakup, or if you want to find someone, don't chase the person, chase the bag. It's something that's peddled on, or should I say that's like sold on to people so much nowadays, to a point where it's just gotten to this level where people are now chasing money, or people are choosing to chase what you would probably classify as like superficial goals, and they are believing that once they achieve those goals, then they will achieve a partner, of which that's not the most accurate reality for most people. And even when you look at like our parents' times, that's not how stuff worked. Like, they had a much higher ceiling to hit in terms of like achieving goals and shit, especially money wise, but it's not like they got their partners when they had already made it. There's very few people who will say that they got their partner after they had already made it. Most of them got it when they were on the grind, not when they were from the grind, and they were like doing super well and shit. And it is something that you do get to see very often, but more often than not nowadays, people talk about the whole growth mindset and chasing a bag and chasing growth so much, and believing that you will find someone, that they forget that for you to find someone, there has to be someone that's actively looking. And the moment you get to that point, that's when you realize one of the couple of different reasons why I don't think the whole chase growth, don't chase someone kind of starts to fall apart. Because the first issue is, for you to actually achieve that, you'd basically have to either, one, be sort of on the same growth path with someone else, such that you guys meet as you guys are trying to grow, or on the other hand, you find someone who is actively looking while you are growing. And if everyone is busy trying to adopt the growth mindset of, like, I'll just chase a goal and I'll find someone on the way, then the chances of that happening aren't very likely. Because when people are all about the grind and growth, one of the things that tends to suffer quite a lot is social interactions. Like, you hear people that talk about how they're on the grind, you find that their social lives usually tend to decrease. They will usually decrease their social circle to a pretty small group of friends. They will not interact with as many people. People will be more drawn towards productivity, so they won't really be trying to go and meet new people. Not unless if it's for, like, say for example, business or some shit, or trying to improve their connections and all. And as you're doing that, it's not like you will be actively looking for someone. Now, there are people that are lucky enough to find a connection who ends up being a partner, but that's not usually the case for a lot of people. So you find that as someone is busy on the whole growth mindset thing, they aren't really paying that much attention towards the many other potential people that they could find. Also, because you are trying to cut back on wasting time, you're also trying to cut back on like being very inefficient with a lot of what you do. There's a very good chance that the very random moments that would very easily lead to like social interactions and like meeting people that you'd be interested in are incredibly minimized or completely even thrown away, because someone is all about the growth mindset and growing, and it's actually not putting them in a position where they can meet new people that would be of romantic interest. And therein lies that issue, because if everyone is trying to push for the growth mindset, then who's really searching for someone else? Because a lot of times people usually make it seem as though they are two different acts and both of them require the same amount of effort, or they take the same amount of effort, so you have to choose one before the other. And usually you're supposed to choose the growth first. Then once you've started like hitting your best, or you've become the best version of yourself, then you should be looking for someone else. And normally, like, that's not really how life works, especially for adulting. Like, yes, you could say that like when you were a kid, because, you know, if you would go through school and you make sure you dedicate all of your time to school, once school is over, you go home, you enjoy yourself, you chill and blah blah. Like, it wasn't a thing where it's like you have to run concurrent tasks and they can run parallel to each other, because a lot of people's childhoods was stuff that was supposed to run in like a very linear manner. You know, you chase your books and then you chase, you know, going after something after you're done with the books. It wasn't a thing where you could chase multiple things like sort of parallel to each other, because the whole idea was that if you start chasing something else that was in the books, you'd get completely distracted and, you know, you wouldn't be able to, say, perform very well. And that was a belief system that was there for a pretty long time. But now as grown adults, there's a lot of people that still think in that same like very linear manner where you have to chase one and you're not supposed to chase things parallel to each other. Even though if there's anything that adulthood has shown us, it's the fact that you are going to be chasing a lot of things parallel to whatever main things you consider as your main thing, like whether it's your job, whether it's a family, and so on and so forth. And like, while I get being the best version of yourself is something that is recommended and it is something that is preached about, honestly, what exactly is the best version of yourself? And who tells you that it won't constantly be changing and improving? So let's say, for example, the typical guy, you know, the best version of themselves is like, you know, a very fit, you know, moderately built body, if that's your sort of thing. You know, you're making pretty good cash and you have the respect of your peers. That is pretty general best version of yourself type shit for a guy. And you manage to do all of that, but then you realize that you're making really good money and you interact with people that make even more money so that you can make even more money. And, you know, like, you started interacting with a couple of people that do hiking, so like now you want to go and hike with them and you want to get to their level as well. So like, there's this constant push where it's like you're constantly trying to make yourself better. So, you know, the ideal best version of yourself isn't really something that is set and like defined, because it's constantly changing and improving. So when are you ever really going to get a chance to start chasing someone that you'd want to be with? Like, don't get me wrong, like, the process is great and enjoying the process is a lot better than getting to the actual goal itself. But if all you're doing is thinking that you have to get to the goal, then you find someone, then you're leaving a lot of room on the table to actually live life and actually enjoy some pretty good experiences with some pretty great people or person. You know, maybe you might just find the one person on the process as you're trying to better yourself that will basically mean that you don't necessarily have to look for someone else. And that's the problem that I see with that entire mindset. The whole idea that you have to chase your goal and you have to get to your goal so that you can look for someone. And it's something that a lot of red pillars have told young guys. It's something that a lot of young guys believe. And that sort of linear frame of thought has held back a lot of guys from actually really enjoying what it is that life has to offer in terms of experiences with different people. And I'm not just talking sexual, just genuine experiences with different people. And honestly, like, while being the best individual is like very significant and it's a great thing to do, and like being the best version of yourself is absolutely amazing, do you want to know who values that the most? That's you. Like, it's great and all, but it'll only ever benefit you. After you, like, everyone else will benefit, but not as much as it'll benefit you. And if anything, after it benefits you, then it can and it probably should benefit other people. But if you do not feel like you are really getting to the benefits up until you feel like you've hit the best, then you're basically losing out on so much. And I see so many guys do that, where they basically say that, you know what, we're chasing the bag, we're not chasing babes, and they basically sacrifice years of their lives, do not improve their social skills. They basically even let them deteriorate because they're trying to chase a bag. And then once they've chased a bag, they've made a bunch of money, they've done a bunch of really positive growth with themselves, all of a sudden they're trying to get back into the dating market, and then they realize that they aren't prepped for it. They do not know how to handle it. And what do they end up doing? They get their hearts broken, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, the problem is, you know what, I need to go and improve myself and become better. Like, there's limits to that shit. Like, yes, you could be trying to move from like making 20k a month to making 100 to making 300, but making $1 million a month isn't going to change your dating prospects all that much in favor of the better. Like, at some point, the growth mindset did actually hold you back because it did kind of kill your ability to socially interact with a lot of people. And therein lies my big issue with it. Just the whole idea of making it seem like it's a linear thing, yet in reality it's something that we can do concurrently with our growth. Like, yes, you are trying to grow as an individual, but you can also meet people. It doesn't have to be something that you invest so much of your time into. It doesn't have to be something that you put in so much investment into. It's something that you can do on a daily, making friendships with people, openly interacting with different people, trying to hit on people that you find to be particularly attractive to you. Like, that's something that you can do without quote unquote sacrificing your growth. Like, you can do that and still grow at the same time. Like, that's essentially what I'm trying to tell a lot of people. And to kind of conclude all of this, I'll just tell you, like, there's nothing wrong with chasing growth. It's just don't use it to run away, pun intended, from chasing a potential partnership because, you're all about the growth. Like, being about the growth is a great thing. Trust me, it is an absolutely amazing thing. The only question is, are you going to end up using it as a drive to help you find a potential partner? Or are you going to use it as like the crutch which will hold you back from trying to find a potential partner, which will basically mean reduced social interactions, which will mean you not going out of your way to actively meet people that you'd be interested in, all because you're all about chasing the growth. Although, then again, maybe I'm wrong about this and maybe I have the wrong idea on this entire thing. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. And on X, it is at BagakTheD. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.